Welcome to Mainland Television Regional News. I'm Graham O'Brien and today's bulletin: lead a horse to water, but how do you make it drink? Council management plan turnout, biofly threat and more. Fruit growers will be watching closely to see how the Ministry of Primary Industries deals with the arrival of the Queensland fruit fly in the north of Auckland this week. The discovery is of significance as the fly has likely arrived as larvae before making its way into soil to hatch out as a fly. This insect has a potential to damage our $8 billion fruit export industry if it should establish itself in New Zealand. We reported an incident in 2013 when a Chinese onion fly had been identified in Mapua after hatching out into a bag of imported garlic that was purchased at the Motueka countdown. The fly was only captured by chance and was sent to the MPI for identification due to its unusual appearance. If the Queensland fruit fly was allowed into the Nelson Tasman area, there would be huge financial consequences for our region. And this begs the question, is our biosecurity current screening procedures adequate enough to protect our growers and exporters from such foreign insects? Chrissy Small spoke to Tasman MP Damien O'Connor, who is opposition spokesman for MPI.
There's a bit of concern, of course, about this fruit fly from Queensland that's arrived in our shores. How could this have been prevented?
Well, we need to ensure that we've got the very best systems possible at the border. And in spite of the Minister and the government saying we've got world-class system, the fact is we're getting regular failures at the border and we're picking them up. And with the issue of fruit fly, 5 since 2012. And what happened in 2012, and it may be just a coincidence, the government, the national government, decided to stop X-raying of all baggage coming out of Australia. And given the Queensland fruit fly originates from there, it is now in the islands, but that decision, we think, has contributed to more breaches of our border by the Queensland fruit fly.
Right. Now, Damien, so is this a cost-cutting measure for the government?
Look, the government cut the biosecurity budget in 2009 when they first came back into government. They put little bits back into the budget, but the fact is that the economy's grown, that imports have grown over time, and we believe that the system is still not as good as it has to be and needs to be. And in government, Labor doubled the money for biosecurity. This government, has hardly kept pace with inflation. And at a time when we've identified the value of biosecurity, the fact that our economy relies on it to protect our biological systems, the government's simply not delivering what it needs to.
Now, Damien, back in 2013, there was an onion fly that was imported from China in a bag of locally sold garlic. Now, that apparently wasn't the first either that's hit the shores of New Zealand. It does kind of suggest that there is something going awry with the security of imported produce into New Zealand. Is this... Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, you're onto it. Look, what we have now is a system that relies on boxes being ticked. And instead of having people inspecting, because we've had a reduction in the number of people doing that, we've got systems that where boxes are ticked, then officials say it's okay for this to come in. Now, we can't always rely on the integrity and honesty of the people who are picking the boxes. And unfortunately, that's why you get things like the onion fly, because they say it's been fumigated, they say it's been fumigated properly, and the fact is it hasn't been. And we can't afford to have that happen as a country that depends upon exports. Most other countries consume most of what they eat. They can control those products, but our reputation internationally is on having a relatively, pest-free status.
Well, Damien, we've got so many growing areas for our fruit in this country, and it's a huge earner for New Zealand. If for example, this Queensland fruit fly were to have a complete takeover of Auckland, that would have great consequences on fruit travelling around our country, wouldn't it?
Well, in fact, it won't take too many more flies to be discovered for us to lose our fruit fly free status. That is, that the countries importing products from New Zealand some of them could possibly shut down the borders. Now that's disastrous, hundreds of millions of dollars at risk. That's the main consequence. If if the outbreak were to grow, then clearly, transport of fruit within New Zealand would be restricted. But the big threat here is that the borders will be shut to our export products, and we can't afford to have that happen.
Now, there must be some concern out there amongst the growers and exporters.
Oh, there is, and I think Hort New Zealand has, blamed the Australians, which is, I think, a bit cute, really. They've got to front up and actually acknowledge, and they, to be fair to them, have been constantly asking government to up its game. But the fact is that failure has occurred once again with a fruit fly. There was no explanation given as to where the ones in Whangarei came from, so we don't know where they came from, which suggests that, we haven't got our systems right yet.
Right. Well, Damien O'Connor, I hope that they get this sorted soon, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Chrissy. No worries.
Dead whales from last weekend's mass pilot whale stranding on Farewell Spit have been secured by DOC, but not all the whales have been accounted for. A total of 198 whales were first found stranded on Friday the 13th of February. Of these, 66 were finally successfully refloated last Saturday by DOC staff, Project Jonah and other volunteers to help them be able to swim away. DOC rangers have tethered 121 dead whales using anchors and rope in the tidal area off Farewell Spit to decompose naturally. DOC's Takaka Senior Ranger Hans Steffagen said 11 whales were still unaccounted for and dead whales could still turn up, including some that might have died since being refloated. But there is always a chance that dead whales could wash ashore on local beaches or other coastline around Golden and Tasman Bays, or may even be seen out at sea. The Department of Conservation is advising the public to report any dead whales seen to its DOC hotline. Controversy over the removal of Lewis Stanton's horse Barney grows over the SPCA report that diagnosed Barney as being 10% dehydrated and suffering heat stress, giving them their sole reason for his removal. This led to Lewis Stanton being deprived of his transport, living and companion. There have been accusations and complaints to the SPCA from some members of our community that he was mistreating the horse. The SPCA refused comment due to the ongoing investigation, and we were unable to get comment from Andrew Conway from the Richmond Vet Centre, who inspected the horse before his removal, due to him currently being on holiday. So we wanted to know, what does 10% dehydration mean, and is it really serious enough to confiscate a man's horse? We asked well-known horseman Harmony Aquarian from Pegasus Equestrian Adventures his thoughts on the matter. Okay, thanks very much for spending time with us and trying to answer some of our questions, Harmony. A horse that's 10% dehydrated, how would you explain that to a layman? Is that dangerous, do you think?
Well, for me, that would be a very difficult thing to quantify. You see horses, they all have different constitutions, and some are well-doers, some are not. Generally, my experience with dehydration would come from when a horse has scours or severe diarrhea. And oftentimes, rehydrating a horse is not as easy as it sounds, because, as they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so, I would say 10% to me sounds like it's something that's within the range of almost of having to be acceptable until the horse makes a decision.
Yeah, and just out of interest, how much water does a horse have to drink a day? I mean, for humans, it's like 3 litres or something.
Well, I think they say 20 litres a day is probably a horse that's not working, being overworked.
Yeah.
It might be increased even by double that if they're working hard all day long.
Wow. And
I've been told, yeah.
Yeah, and standing around in the sun and occasionally going for a walk around town, you wouldn't class that as being overworked in any way?
I wouldn't say. Again, if the horse is hot, sometimes he doesn't want to drink anyway. But
yeah,
it's a grey area in a lot of respects.
Sure. And so leading on from that, I mean, some people are saying that Hone Mahiki's been, you know, cruel to the animals. It's inhumane to keep them out there in the sun. Would you class this 10% dehydration as cruelty or inhumane treatment at all?
Personally, I wouldn't. I mean, it's always great if you can find a shady spot, you know, to park your horse up, because that does, you know, reduce any chance of being heat stressed. But seeing my horses, they'll stand out in the sun all day long, even when they're shaved there a lot of times, and they don't seem to notice one way or the other. You try to make shade available when you can, but they don't always use it.
And that's part of the problem, was that he was in Hone's defence, he was actually moving the horse to a shady part where it could stand under the shade when the trouble began.
Yeah. Well, the number of times I've seen that horse over the years, and I always sort of check on him, see how he's doing. I say he's a horse that's in work, and when horses are working, you know, they're more likely to be lean than they are to be fat, and that's the thing. I mean, it's a horse that's too fat is probably more dangerous than one that's a little bit light. So, and I've never seen Barney show any signs of stress. I've looked at his feet as well, and you know, to me, I don't think there was anything to indicate any kind of neglect. You know.
Excellent. Harmony Aquarium, thank you very much for your in-depth knowledge on the horses. Thank you.
Can I tell you one more thing? We're having the Musos for Mammals out at the Playhouse on Sunday, which is actually a benefit for the SPCA. So people come out and.
Oh, great! Yeah, we'll put that up for sure.
Out there.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Have a good day.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
If it ain't broke, then why try to fix it? Could be a saying that Nelson City Council may need to take heed of in the future after their management meeting this week on Wednesday night that drew a crowd of around 50 people. Those who attended made their feelings very clear about their views for the drafted Brook Recreation Reserve Management Plan. The messages delivered by those attending the meeting were for Council to not close the Brook campground and to keep traffic down in the Brook Valley. These public suggestions could be delivering the message that before Council intervened with the running of the camp, everything had been tickety-boo in the hood. So considering the camp began making its losses once placed under Council management, to have Parks and Recreational Tourism Planner Rob Greenaway say after the meeting that one possibility was that it might be leased to a private operator would seem a most sensible outcome, would it not? The plan will be drafted over the next 2 months with a 2-month submission period, followed by a public hearing of submissions with final approval planned for late July. Not giving a shit has cost Lewis Stanton, otherwise known as Hone Mahiki, his freedom for 2 weeks after the presiding judge was going to cancel $50,000 of fines in exchange for 400 hours of community work. This ongoing saga is not going away in a hurry. Even though Stanton's uttering of these words has removed him from Nelson at great cost to the taxpayer and an emotional one for his mother Sylvia, who turned 75 today, Lewis Stanton leaves for Rolleston Prison on Friday after being held in the cells in Nelson and will be returning to Nelson in the middle of next week to join his belongings parked in front of the Nelson Courthouse. The outburst at this hearing over 88,000 in outstanding parking-related infringements in front of Judge Zorab did him no favours as the judge took a firm hand and found him in contempt of court. After his removal from court, Stanton's lawyer, Stephen Zindel, said that Hone expressed his regret following his outbursts. Forget the Barbie doll, Lego and the iPad, the greatest gift a parent can give a child is their time. And this is what this event, Dad's Day Out, is all about. The event is a way Barnardos is encouraging dads, stepdads, granddads, uncles or any guy who is caring full or part-time for an under 6-year-old. This free event is coming up on Sunday the 22nd of February from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Mega Slide at Tahunanui Beach. Sports Tasman will be there with their trailer of fun equipment. There will be face painting, Flossie the Balloon Lady, a bouncy castle and rides on the Mega Slide. The Active Dads initiative is funded by the Ministry of Social Development and delivered by Barnardos. So all you blokes, give mum the day off and get the kids down to the beach for some dad time. And don't forget the sunblock. And finally, in our continuing journey finding out buskers' views on our Nelson City Council's 30-minute duration rule to move buskers on to another spot, we caught up with an Englishman busking his way around the world.
From England originally.
Great. When did you get started in busking?
Maybe 2 years ago when I left to go to Canada.
So travelling's brought on this hobby of busking.
Yeah, definitely. It's been the way I've been travelling for the past few years now.
That's great. And what styles do you like to play?
I like to mix it up, a bit of sort of traditional music and some bluegrass, some reggae, and just appeal to everyone, you know.
Oh, that sounds great. Are you registered with the council here?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so we won't ask that again. So have you ever been chalked and moved on?
A few places in the bigger cities, yeah.
Okay. And what do you think of the system of chalking and registering?
It can be okay in the bigger cities, I think, when there's a lot of people trying to get in. But I think in smaller places, it kills the whole busking scene a bit because it doesn't give that freedom, you know. You have to sort of be forced to do something, and it takes away the freedom of what the music is.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Joe. Would you like to play us out today?
I'll play you a song for sure.
That'd be great.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region. On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thank you for joining us, and we'll bring you the latest news and events from around the region again tomorrow.